What's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken and welcome back to another video. Supports are an invaluable part of any team for the healing, crowd control, and damage they can provide. Many supports can save their teammates from death, defend themselves, and provide useful crowd control effects to help secure those crucial kills. That's why in this video I'll be going over my picks for the top 5 strongest supports in Paladins midway through 2020. Keep in mind that this list is from a PC perspective, though some of the picks on this list can be strong on console too. Also keep in mind that this list is simply just my opinion, though I've put a lot of thought and consideration into my opinion to make this list as accurate as possible. This is quite possibly the toughest list I've had to make, since a lot of the supports in the game are amazing right now in the right circumstances, and each provides some helpful, unique benefits to any team. But with that out of the way, let's jump into the number 5 spot. Number 5. Grover. Starting off our list we have Grover, an amazing group healer and hybrid support who can deal loads of damage while keeping his team topped off. Grover is an amazing support for group healing, since he can heal his entire team if they all group up around him simply by just existing. Grover is the only support in the game with a passive heal that can last as long as Grover is alive, and this can provide some helpful healing over time to the tanks he's healing. He can also provide a burst of 800 healing to all allies near him, and with the right loadout he can perform this burst fairly frequently while also giving his teammates a brief period of increased movement speed. He also receives 100% of the healing he gives out, since his passive heal and Blossom both give him their healing benefits too. Not only that, but Grover can heal his teammates through walls, which makes him a top choice on maps like Brightmarsh, where Grover can lurk around on the upper ledge of the closed-in objective and heal his teammates without putting himself in the line of fire. Of course, Grover doesn't need to play passively at all, and has some great offensive perks that help his team secure those crucial kills. For starters, Grover does not have a channeled heal, which means he can spend the entire duration of the game throwing out his powerful axes, which accumulate more damage the farther they travel. This makes Grover one of the best supports to pick if you enjoy supplementing your team's damage, since Grover players often score much higher damage numbers than the other healers in the support class, even while using Rampant Blooming. Grover also has another useful tool which can be devastating to pretty much anyone with a movement ability, his Crippling Root. This is a powerful crowd control ability to have, since it can stop enemy flankers from using their movement abilities or can cancel any ability that requires some time to charge up, like Rom's Juggernaut or Ash's Shoulder Bash. While it's not as helpful against enemies who don't have a movement ability, that's where his most powerful talent, Deep Roots, comes into effect. Deep Roots causes Grover's Crippling Throw to root enemies in place for 1 second and chain to nearby enemies if they're close enough. This lets Grover lock enemies in place long enough that his teammates have a much easier time scoring a kill on whoever Grover just rooted, and can be devastating in the right circumstances. Ultimately, Grover is just an absolute monster of a group healer who can provide powerful healing to his entire team as long as they group up around him. He's a great hybrid support who can deal loads of damage and healing all at once, and his Crippling Throw is an amazing crowd control ability that makes it much easier for his team to secure kills. He's an incredibly solid support who earns the number 5 spot on this list. Number 4. Furia. In the number 4 spot we have another fantastic support who has solid healing, damage, and crowd control, and a fantastic ultimate which grants powerful buffs to her teammates. Furia is a unique support who channels the power of the Pyre to keep her allies alive, with a hefty 1400 health heal through Kindle Soul that has an incredibly short cooldown of just 3 seconds. This isn't her only option to heal her allies though. Through the use of Solar Blessing, Furia gains access to the single most powerful healing ability in the game, the Pyre Strike. By default, this ability is actually meant to be an offensive tool. It deals a decent amount of damage to whoever is unfortunate enough to get caught in its path, and it also stuns them for 1 second. However, with this talent, the Pyre will actually stop moving when it comes into contact with one of Furia's teammates, and heal them for 150 health every 20th of a second, or basically 3,000 healing per second. Even if a teammate is afflicted with Cauterize 3, they'll still receive 750 healing per second throughout the duration of the beam, which is just mind-blowing. And with a build such as this, which focuses heavily on resetting the cooldown of the Pyre Strike, Furia can have multiple beams on the map at a time. However, without proper communication with her team, the beams can be rather hard to land on a teammate without being directly behind them. The beam travels quite slowly, and it can often be accidentally dodged by a tank who's trying to avoid fire from the enemy champions. It can also be intercepted by a teammate who wasn't meant to receive the beam, and this can sometimes result in the tank dying. Still though, when it hits its intended target, it is indeed like a solar blessing to the tank's health pool. Furia also has some solid damage output, since her fire rate increases as she does more healing. Her ultimate is also fantastic, since it provides a team-wide damage and movement speed buff which can help them chase down the enemies and kill them through the sheer overwhelming advantage of having a massive damage buff. All in all, Furia is an outstanding support and a valuable asset to any team who earns the number 4 spot on this list. Number 3. Maldamba. Maldamba was just buffed in the most recent patch Radiant Stars, and while the buffs seem minor on paper, they really add up in practice. Maldamba is an absolutely phenomenal healer who can provide incredibly potent and consistent healing to anyone on his team. He has 2 forms of healing with his Gourd and Mending Spirits, both of which provide some solid healing by themselves. Mending Spirits has a short cooldown of just 3 seconds and provides 1300 health over its 4-second duration, and his Gourd provides 1560 health over its 4.8 second duration to any teammate who stands inside of it. However, when you combine these 2 abilities on one champion, you suddenly have an absolutely monstrous amount of healing which has no struggle at keeping a champion alive. This is also without factoring in his 2 equally powerful healing talents. Spirits Chosen provides a brief burst heal of 250 on whoever gets healed by Mending Spirits, and Ripened Gourd provides double the amount of healing on the Gourd. A devoted healer, Maldamba can effortlessly provide all the healing his team needs, and then some. Maldamba also has 2 crowd control abilities with his reload and his ultimate. With Deft Hands 3, Maldamba can throw out stunning snakes every second, and can be an absolute nuisance to anyone who hasn't bought Resilience. Maldamba's ultimate is also extremely powerful. It causes anyone in its massive radius to run away in fear, making them vulnerable to fire from Maldamba's cunning teammates. Maldamba also has the option to stun them as soon as the effect wears off, further burdening the enemy with crowd control effects. Maldamba's movement ability is also really strong for survivability, as it turns him briefly immortal and crowd control immune as he dashes to his destination. This lets him avoid deadly ultimates such as Ceres' Convergence, Bomb King's King Bomb, and Terminus' Reanimate. This is strong for obvious reasons, since an alive support is better for the team than a dead support. Maldamba's powerful combination of fantastic healing, frequent crowd control, and a strong movement ability earns him the number 3 spot on this list. Number 2. Io. Whenever you lock in Io on the champion selection screen, you're not just selecting a support, but rather the combination of a support and a tank. Io is the only champion in the game with an ability that lets her capture the objective without physically being on it. You see, Io's Vulpine companion Luna can be deployed onto the point or wherever Io commands, where it will begin attacking nearby enemies and capturing the objective it is currently sitting on. It has 3000 health by default, though this can be buffed through Io's loadout cards. It will also stun the enemy Io last shot at with her bow if it has line of sight, and once it starts chasing you, it's nearly impossible to avoid. Luna can also be healed by Io, though as of the Radiant Stars patch it can now be affected by Cauterize, so it's much harder for Io to keep Luna alive since it was already able to be affected by Bulldozer. Speaking of Io's healing, Io is excellent in that department as well. Io's Moonlight heals for 1000 healing per second, and it can instantly be toggled on or off of a target. It lasts for however long Io feels the target needs to be healed, or until she runs out of resources to keep it lasting. You see, Moonlight is the only healing ability in the game which uses a resource meter, similar to Terminus' Power Siphon or Strix's Invisibility. This means that her heal has no cooldown, she just needs to keep an eye on how low her resource meter is getting. With this heal, Io can also provide 15% damage reduction to a teammate with the talent Goddess's Blessing. This is especially powerful in the late game and most people have Cauterize, since there is no counter to the damage reduction she provides other than flat out killing her. That won't be easy to do, however. If both Io and Luna are shooting at a target, she can do some pretty substantial damage. Luna can also body block for a skillful Io who darts and weaves around Luna, making it hard to hit her. A flanker will also have to account for the possible stun Luna will do to them if the two of them are close together. Io's ultimate can also help her outlast a flanker, since it gives her brief immunity from damage and crowd control effects, and fires out a powerful projectile that sucks up enemies and sends them flying. Overall, Io is an incredible support with a very unique kit. She's hard to kill and can provide excellent and consistent healing to her teammates when they need it. Her ability to place Luna on the objective and allow her entire team to pretty much ignore capturing the objective when they go to zone is unique among the support class and is an immensely powerful tool to have, and it earns Io the number 2 spot on this list. There is one honorable mention I'd like to point out before we get into the number 1 pick, and that is Genos. Genos is a great support when it comes to pocketing his teammates. Flanks and damage champions love him for the damage buff he gives with Luminary, and the crowd control he can provide with his Void Grip can be quite useful, especially with the power Cosmium. However, the reason Genos doesn't make it onto this list is for his generally lackluster healing. Genos' sole healing ability is Astromark, which provides 2100 healing over 10 seconds. While it's an extremely long and consistent heal, it doesn't heal for much health per second. This often leaves tanks feeling like they're not getting much healing, and for good reason. All the healers on this list can do more burst healing than Genos, and are much better at keeping their tanks alive than Genos. For comps with 2 tanks, Genos becomes a nightmare as his healing just isn't able to keep up as well as other supports, especially when Cauterize is introduced to the scene. While Genos can be amazing for hyper-aggressive comps that aren't 2-point oriented, Genos lacks the flexibility that other supports have to be good in a variety of team comps. Still though, his Illuminary buff is enough to make him bannable in ranked, and I believe that he deserves an honorable mention on this list. Now, let's get on with the number 1 choice. Number 1. Corvus. Corvus is the newest support in Paladins and one who is not to be trifled with. Corvus is by far the best support in the game when it comes to pocketing his tanks and flanks alike, since he can deploy a mark on any one of his teammates, who will then receive a percentage of the healing he does to any of his other allies. With Spreading Influence, Corvus can deploy 2 of these marks, letting him heal up to 3 people at once. What this mechanic lets Corvus do is sit in his backline and heal the tank or damage champion next to him, while simultaneously pumping healing into his friendly flankers who are across the map with several walls between them and Corvus. Corvus can also give his marked targets up to 25% lifesteal, which heals both themselves and Corvus. On top of that, Corvus can also give an extra movement speed buff to the marked targets too, and if he heals one of the marked targets, he not only heals that person for extra, but he also gets a second removed from the cooldown of his heal. With Spreading Influence, Corvus can put a mark on his tank and his flank, and then consistently heal the tank for pretty much the same amount as Furious Kindlesoul, while also supporting his flank, who is extremely far away from Corvus. Corvus can also quickly swap his marks to whoever is far away from him and needs healing the most, effectively giving him nearly infinite range. And this is completely ignoring all the fun synergies that Corvus can pull off with Dark Gifts, which provides additional reload speed, cooldown reduction, and crowd control reduction to his marked targets, making builds such as Half Shell Makoa and Exaction Cassie absolutely busted. Not only is his ability to pocket champions and keep his tanks alive incredible, but the rest of his kit is strong too. Corvus' weapon is one of the highest DPS weapons in the support class before you factor in the fact that he can hit headshots, and it's extremely easy to use. His movement ability is also superb. He can teleport an incredible distance relatively quickly, and with Stunning Visage, he can throw his dagger directly at an enemy to stun them, pump bullets into them, and then teleport through them to finish the kill, leaving Corvus completely unscathed. And to top it all off, his ultimate is pretty good for survivability and dealing heavy damage to tanks. He rises up into the air, gains 60% damage reduction and crowd control immunity, and then can fly around while choosing where to drop an epic looking abyssal breach that slows enemies caught inside it, and deals 6.25% of their health as damage per second while they're stuck inside. This is an excellent ultimate to drop on a cluster of enemies, on the objective, or on an approaching tank, and it can also be used to survive incoming deadly ultimates like King Bomb or Reanimate. Corvus' kit is absolutely superb. He has great damage, amazing healing, and the ability to pocket his teammates from literally anywhere as long as he has line of sight on at least one person. His ultimate can also be used to keep him alive, reposition, and decimate enemy tanks, and he has one of the best damage builds in the game with Stunning Visage. He can power some super strong builds like Exaction Cassie into overdrive, and is in my opinion the absolute best support in Paladins. But anyways, that's the end of this video. What do you guys think of my list? Do you agree with my picks, or do you think someone else deserves the number 1 spot? Let me know in the comments down below, or by joining my Discord where you can pick up tips, leave suggestions, and become a part of our active community. Also make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload from me. I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.